Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are breaking down one of the most serious moments the Iranian regime has faced in decades, as signs of internal collapse, mass unrest, and elite panic are becoming impossible to ignore. Across Iran, the political system built around the supreme leader, the Revolutionary Guard, and the clerical establishment is facing pressure from every direction at the same time. What makes this moment different is not just the scale of protests, but the fractures appearing inside the very institutions meant to protect the regime. For years, the Iranian leadership relied on fear, force, and propaganda to maintain control. That formula is now showing deep cracks. Economic collapse, water shortages, inflation, and sanctions have pushed daily life to the breaking point for millions of ordinary Iranians. In cities large and small, protests have erupted over basic survival issues. People are not just demanding reforms anymore. Many are openly questioning the legitimacy of the entire system and chanting slogans that directly challenge the highest levels of power. The regime's response has been predictable but increasingly ineffective. Security forces are deployed, internet access is restricted, and state media denies the scale of unrest. Yet videos and reports continue to leak out, showing crowds that are larger, angrier, and more determined than before. What is especially alarming for the ruling elite is the growing evidence of dissent within the security apparatus itself. Reports of ERG members refusing orders, deserting posts, or quietly aiding protesters have deeply shaken the leadership. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps has long been considered the backbone of regime survival. It controls vast economic networks, commands powerful armed units, and operates with near total impunity. Any sign of division within its ranks is a nightmare scenario for Tehran. Whispers of mutiny do not emerge without reason, many ranking, while members of the ERG come from the same impoverished backgrounds as the protesters. They face the same rising prices, lack of opportunity, and frustration with corruption at the top. When loyalty is maintained only through fear and financial incentives, economic collapse becomes a direct threat to discipline. As state revenues shrink and inflation soars, the regime struggles to keep its own enforcers satisfied. At the same time, senior clerics and political insiders are reportedly moving assets abroad or sending family members out of the country. This behavior sends a powerful signal to the population that even the elite lack confidence in the system's future. For ordinary Iranians, this elite panic confirms long-held suspicions. The people see leaders preaching resistance and sacrifice while quietly preparing escape routes. This hypocrisy fuels rage rather than fear. The protests themselves are increasingly decentralized and leaderless. This makes them harder to suppress. Without a single figurehead or organization to target, security forces are forced into a reactive posture across multiple regions. Young people are at the center of this movement. A generation raised under sanctions, censorship, and economic isolation sees little to lose. Their anger is sharpened by social media exposure to life beyond Iran's borders. Women have also played a decisive role. After years of restrictions, surveillance, and punishment, many are openly defying the state. Their presence at the forefront of demonstrations has transformed the tone and symbolism of resistance. The regime's ideological narrative is also collapsing. Claims of moral authority, revolutionary purity, and resistance to foreign enemies ring hollow when citizens cannot afford food, water, or electricity. Even some former regime supporters are now expressing doubts. Veterans of earlier conflicts and revolutions feel betrayed by a system they believe has been hijacked by corrupt elites and self-serving clerics. International pressure compounds the crisis. Sanctions have limited the regime's ability to stabilize the economy, while diplomatic isolation reduces options for external relief. Attempts to blame foreign conspiracies no longer convince a population living the reality of mismanagement. State media continues to describe protesters as criminals or foreign agents, but the sheer diversity of participants, including workers, teachers, retirees, and students, undermines this narrative completely. In several regions, local authorities appear overwhelmed. Municipal offices have been attacked, symbols of the state burned, and officials forced to flee. These are not isolated incidents, but part of a wider pattern of collapsing local control. Fear that once kept people silent is fading. When crowds reach a critical mass, repression becomes riskier. Each violent crackdown risks triggering even larger demonstrations and further defections. The leadership faces a strategic dilemma. Using maximum force could temporarily suppress protests, but risks accelerating internal splits. Showing restraint, on the other hand, signals weakness and encourages more resistance. Economic indicators paint a grim picture. Inflation has eroded savings, unemployment remains high, and essential goods are increasingly unaffordable. These conditions make long-term stability nearly impossible. Water scarcity adds another layer of crisis. Entire communities face shortages that threaten agriculture and daily survival. Environmental mismanagement has turned a natural challenge into a political time bomb. In rural areas, anger is rising alongside desperation. Farmers who once stayed out of politics now find themselves confronting a state that has failed to protect their livelihoods. The regime's legitimacy was already fragile. Elections with low turnout, widespread allegations of fraud, and the exclusion of reformist voices have hollowed out remaining trust in official institutions. Religious authority, once a pillar of the system, is also weakening. Many clerics avoid public appearances, aware that their presence may provoke hostility rather than respect. Some mosques report declining attendance, while religious slogans that once unified supporters now provoke mockery among younger generations. The possibility of a cascading collapse worries regional and global observers. Iran's internal stability affects energy markets, regional security, and geopolitical alliances. Inside the country, rumors spread quickly. Each report of a fleeing official or a defiant security unit feeds a sense that the end may be approaching. History shows that authoritarian systems often appear strongest just before sudden breakdown. The concentration of power masks deep internal rot that becomes visible only when stress reaches a tipping point. The Iranian regime has survived previous crises through repression and limited concessions. What makes this moment different is the convergence of economic, social, environmental, and institutional failures. There is no clear roadmap for what comes next. The opposition remains fragmented, and the future shape of governance is uncertain. Yet uncertainty does not stop people from demanding change. For many protesters, this is no longer about specific policies. It is about dignity, opportunity, and a life free from constant fear. The chants heard on the streets reflect this shift. They are blunt, direct, and openly defiant, leaving little room for compromise. As protests continue, the role of the earth will be decisive. Whether it remains unified or fractures further could determine the regime's fate. The leadership's apparent preparations to flee suggest they understand the risks. When those at the top lose confidence, systems unravel quickly. For now, Iran stands at a crossroads. One path leads to harsher repression and deeper isolation. The other leads into an unknown future shaped by popular resistance. What is clear is that the old certainties are gone. The myth of invincibility surrounding the regime has been shattered in the eyes of millions. The coming weeks and months will be critical. Each protest, each defection, and each act of defiance adds pressure to an already strained system. Whether this moment becomes a full collapse or another chapter of unrest, it has already changed Iran forever. The people have found their voice, and fear no longer guarantees silence. This unfolding crisis is not just about power, but about a society demanding to be heard after decades of suppression. As events continue to develop, one thing remains undeniable. The Tehran regime is facing its greatest test yet, and the outcome will shape the future of Iran for generations to come.